So my job, I'm a software architect. My whole world is about fixing broken systems. But not too long ago, the most important system in my life, my marriage, had a catastrophic failure, and I had to build a whole new protocol from scratch to fix it. I call it the listening loop, and believe it or not, it all started with one single sentence. Yep, those were the words. My wife, Priya, said them to me. And she didn't even yell them. She said them quietly, but they landed like a total system crash. In that one moment, I realized everything I thought I was doing right was completely and utterly wrong.
You see, my name is Arjun. My brain is wired for logic. I see a problem, I design an efficient solution. It's what I do. It's who I am. And right there, in my own house, trying to help the person I love most in the world, my logic had just spectacularly backfired. To really get what happened, you have to understand the initial conditions. It was a Thursday night. Priya came home late, and I knew instantly it was a bad day, just by the sound of her bag hitting the floor. It wasn't the usual soft drop. It was a thud. My internal system registered a high-priority alert, and I went into full-on attention mode.
So she tells me what happened. Her manager, this guy Rohit, he just straight up stole credit for a campaign she had poured 6 weeks of her life into. Presented it as his team's work, never once said her name, and get this, he even took credit for her specific brilliant regional insights. The injustice of it was, well, it was infuriating. And my brain immediately parsed this as a very clear problem statement. So naturally, I did what I do best. I designed a solution, a really clean, efficient, 5-point action plan. Oh, I was on a roll. Document everything, request a one-on-one, send a summary to the VP. I was just about to reveal the brilliant 5th point when she just looked at me and said, "Stop." And that's when my perfect plan and pretty much my entire evening just detonated.
She just walked out of the room, and I was left there totally confused. I mean, the logic was flawless. The solutions were practical. So like any good architect, when a system doesn't give you the expected output, what do? You debug. I literally sat there and decided to trace the execution path of our conversation.
And the divergence between expected and actual results was, well, it was catastrophic. My input was problem, my processing was solution, my output was 5-point plan. Expected result? Priya feels better, problem on its way to being solved. Actual result? Priya gets more upset, and I'm sitting alone in the living room. Where was the bug in the code?
So I did what I always do when I can't figure something out. I Googled it. I typed in, "wife angry when I solve her problems." The number you're looking at, 453 million. That's how many results popped up. And in that instant, it became crystal clear. This was not just my bug. This was a massive systemic issue. The big breakthrough came from a place I never expected. A DevOps call at work the next day. We were talking about something called alert fatigue. See, our engineers were ignoring critical system alerts. And why? Because the alerts just threw a bunch of data at them. What the engineers actually needed first was context, acknowledgement. They needed to know, should I care about this right now, before they got hit with more information. And boom, it just hit me. That's exactly what Priya needed. This idea, it gave me a completely new way of looking at things. I wasn't dealing with a user error on her part, I was using the wrong communication protocol entirely. So I started to design a new one, a sort of mental model, and I called it the listening loop protocol. Okay, so here's the core of it. Every message, every story someone tells you has 2 parts. There's the content, the actual facts, Rohit took credit for my work, and then there's the metadata, the feeling behind the facts. When Priya told me about Rohit, I processed the content, but I completely missed the metadata. The real message wasn't about her manager, it was, I feel invisible, I feel unappreciated. Do you even see me?
I started thinking about it like a network handshake. In tech, you can't just send a packet of data out of nowhere. You have to establish a connection first. A SYN, then a SYNAC, then an ACK. Conversation is exactly the same. Step 1, someone shares a feeling. That's the SYN. Step 2, you have to acknowledge that feeling. That's your SYNAC. Only then, once the connection is secure, can you move to Step 3, problem solving. I had been skipping right to Step 3, and my data packets were getting dropped every single time.
Of course, a theory is just a theory. You have to test it in a live environment. And, as luck would have it, I got my chance about a week later.
So Priya comes home with a new problem. This time, a client rejected 3 weeks of her work and wanted to go back to an old, flawed concept. Every fiber of my being, my entire problem-solving soul, was screaming, I can fix this. I had strategies, I had ideas, but I remember the protocol. Acknowledge first.
So instead of launching into a plan, I took a breath, and I just said this. I sent the SYNAC packet. I acknowledged the emotional metadata. And I'm not kidding, I literally watched her posture change. The tension in her shoulders just eased. The connection was established.
And then, this amazing thing happened. Her anger didn't go away, but it transformed. It went from this agitated, frustrated anger into a focused, problem-solving anger. Her own brilliant mind came online. She started pacing, talking it through, and she architected her own solution, and it was a much better one than I could have come up with. All I did was listen.
You know, I even tested this at work. My junior dev, Karthik, came to me really upset about a harsh code review. The old Arjun would have jumped right into debating the technical merits. Instead, I just said, man, that sounds really frustrating. The result? The listening loop wasn't just nicer, it was way more efficient. We got to a collaborative solution in literally half the time it would have taken if I'd just put him on the defensive.
And all of this led me to this one final, kind of counterintuitive idea. It's a core principle that totally changed how I deal with people, not just in my marriage, but everywhere. I call it the paradox of helping.
This is the key insight, right here. Listening isn't a passive activity, it's active. Think of it like emotional load balancing. When someone's upset, their emotional CPU is maxed out at 100%. They have no bandwidth for new information. By jumping straight to solutions, I was basically trying to install new software on an overloaded system. It was never going to work. But by just acknowledging their feelings, I was helping to clear their emotional cache, freeing up their own cognitive resources to solve the problem themselves.
So this is what it boils down to. The notes I scribbled in my own notebook. The listening loop paradox is this. The fastest way to help someone solve their problem is to stop trying to solve it for them. If you skip that acknowledgement handshake, even the most perfect solution will fail to transmit. You have to process the metadata of emotion before you can ever get to the content of logic.
So, the next time someone comes to you with a problem, just ask yourself this one simple question. Are you trying to solve the problem, or are you trying to connect with the person? Because it turns out that focusing on the connection is almost always the fastest and best way to actually solve the problem.